I'm rather, for somebody who does a podcast or who's done talk radio, you never want to find yourself stymied in what to say. But I really am, to use an old expression, kind of tongue-tied right now. I'm not sure what direction to go in. I find myself worried about what we are facing. I am terrified that the Trump organization, with his handmaidens, the Christian fascist movement, and there are millions of them, have already determined that he, Donald Christ Jesus God Trump, is going to win this election no matter what the vote count is. And he said some things over the weekend that are absolutely, to me, chilling. On Sunday, he was in Erie, Pennsylvania, where he was advocating police brutality. He called for, quote, one really violent day, end quote, of policing. Trump said he wants extraordinary rough approach, and he said that would dramatically reduce crime in major U.S. cities. And he proposed putting a real nut-crazy fucker named Mike Kelly, who's a representative from Pennsylvania, Christian fascist. He wants to put Kelly in charge. Why? I don't know. I don't know enough about that, about him. Anyway, the video's out there if you want to see it. The orange bastard is ranting to this crowd of fucking psychos who have come to see him. He said, quote, one rough hour, and I mean real rough. The word will get out and will end immediately. End immediately. It'll end immediately. Unquote. Now, people who are reasonably rational, intelligent, including political scholars and historians and experts on fascism, authoritarianism, who were aware of what this son of a bitch said on Sunday in Erie, Pennsylvania, they were all quick to say that this kind of rhetoric is extremely dangerous, incredibly dangerous. One of the people warning about this is New York University history professor Ruth Ben-Gout. You've probably seen her on MSNBC. She's known for her expertise on the history of fascism and the filthy subhumans who wind up in positions of fascistic power, like Mussolini, like Hitler, like Putin, like Orban, like Erdogan, and like Trump wants to be. I mean, the list is fairly long of fascists and would-be fascists. And on X, Professor Ben-Gout posted this, quote, I study dictators and this chills me. She's referring to what Trump said. Given all his comments in the past about executing people and shooting people and his admiration for leaders specializing in mass repression, it's not hard to imagine that his quote of one really violent day, what it would mean, end quote. And another political scholar, one Dr. Karen Stenner, posted this, quote, that a major party presidential nominee could ever be talking like this should be a stain on the GOP forever, end quote. And then a journalist named Jim Stewartson, who is aware of what Trump said on Sunday. He said that Trump's call for a, quote, really violent day, end quote, of policing brought to mind Nazi Germany's Kristallnacht on November 9th, 1938, which every Jew in America knows about. Every Gentile should know about it. Every citizen of this country should now know about Kristallnacht, when Hitler ordered his supporters to attack Jewish businesses all over Germany. Trump, the orange, filthy Nazi fucker, did not use the German word Kristallnacht specifically, but Jim Stewartson argued that Trump was promoting the same thing. This is what the journalist Jim Stewartson tweeted, quote, in PA today, Donald Trump gave one of the most dangerous speeches of the 21st century by describing his strategy for reducing crime as Kristallnacht, one extraordinarily rough, one really rough, nasty day, one rough hour. You'll know it ends immediately. I've seen this described as the purge, which is wrong. This was a movie when the population was set against itself. And Stewartson added, this is the description of state-sponsored widespread violence. And it actually happened. And another scholar, Jamie Chapman, posted this, quote, for those history buffs out there, yes, Trump is calling for the night of broken glass. Kristallnacht. Another historian, Dr. Gina von Raphael, wrote, quote, Kristallnacht. That's what Trump is asking for with his purge in a day of violence. I hope the younger ones understand what that means. End quote. Trump knows that if the election were called today or next month, he would lose to Kamala Harris. If the election were based on the preference of the American people, and even if the election had to work its way through this racist fucking leftover from previous history of this country, the Electoral College, Trump would lose. Trump knows he would lose. His inner circle of Nazis also know he would lose. The Nazi organizations in the various states, like here in Georgia, that have been very carefully rigging the vote counting to make sure that when the votes are cast, that there would be delays, there would be court challenges, there would be anything to prevent the results of the election from being made public as quickly as it has been in the past, which will give the Nazi organization in this country time to activate their legal challenges and activate their stormtroopers to begin acts of violence and threats of violence against the people who are charged with counting the votes, recording the votes, reporting the votes. This has been carefully planned out. I mean, this is something that you and I should fully understand and be prepared to deal with. This shit has been going on quietly, except when it's been discovered, as it was discovered here in Georgia. It's been going on quietly for months now, if not for a couple of years. And the moving force behind this are these Christian Nazis, and they are Nazis. They are the worst fucking kinds of human beings ever, and they hide behind and destroy and shred the Christian religion to the point that it's meaningless, but they still call themselves born-again Christians, and they pray, and they mouth breathe, and they wave their hands in the air, and they mumble in tongues, and all this other crazy goddamn maniacal stuff that these religious bastards go through. It's just awful to watch and to realize that tens of millions of people in this country have been sucked into this pit of insanity. Prior to Trump, I'm talking about the pit of insanity that Christianity has pulled people into and made them ripe and ready and prepared and eager for a monster like Trump to come along. And he came along. This morning on MSNBC, on the Morning Joe show, Scarborough was marveling at Trump's week-long meltdown. And the reason he's melting down, let's keep this in mind, is Kamala Harris has been building momentum. And how far are we now from November 5th? What, 4 days over a month? And the orange bastard escalated his personal attacks on Kamala Harris over the weekend. He's now calling her mentally impaired, saying she should be impeached and prosecuted. Mika Brzezinski on Morning Joe this morning, she said, quote, 5 weeks to go until the November election. Trump spent the weekend campaigning in several key battleground states and used extreme and dark rhetoric to attack his opponent. He is doubling down if that's possible, end quote. And the video, if you go to MSNBC You go to Scarborough's program this morning, you can watch this video, this montage of some of the insane, murderous, just crazy shit that's coming out of this mental defective's mouth now, Trump. Scarborough said this, quote, "We're watching a meltdown. I don't think you call it double down. I mean, well, you can look at the clips. Again, even Republicans are attacking Trump. You know, quietly, they're getting really worried right now." End quote, Scarborough. And then Mika Brzezinski weighed in. She said, quote, "He reiterated his pledge to go after people who cheat in the election. He said one violent day of policing will end crime in America and continue to push misinformation about Haitian immigrants in Springfield. In addition to some very odd tangent moments." End quote. And then on Scarborough's program, the producers rolled nearly 4 minutes of video of Trump presenting himself as just fucking totally insane, rambling on about crime and election fraud and immigrants and Kamala Harris's mental capacity. And then the most incredible shit at the end of this bizarre 4-minute long rant, he starts going on about a fly, F-L-Y, a fly, insect, buzzing around his podium. This is what he said, quote, "2 years ago, I would not have had a fly up here, but things are changing rapidly. I mean, Republicans obviously are concerned about this for good reason." Jesus Christ. And he added this, referring to Republicans, "They're talking about how I'm doubling down." Of course, they usually whisper. They usually whisper those things. I wrote some of these notes down. "She's mentally impaired." And the crowd applauded. "She's mentally disabled." The crowd applauded. "She's a stupid person." And the crowd applauded. And Scarborough then, when this video was over, and it's very chilling if you watch it, Scarborough said this, quote, "The New York Times shows Republicans are actually being critical of Trump. Republicans fault Trump over insults to his rival." Front of the national section, New York Times, a picture of Larry Hogan, who's running for Senate. Larry Hogan, by the way, is the Republican former governor of Maryland, very moderate Republican. And Hogan said, quote, "That's insulting not only to the vice president, but to people that actually do have mental disabilities. I've said for years," Hogan went on, "that Trump's divisive rhetoric is something that we can do without," end quote. And Lindsey Graham Cracker, that little beast, was also just a tad critical of Trump's statements this weekend. And Representative Tom Emmer, another Christian fascist who is helping Vance, Trump's ape, for the upcoming debate, Emmer tried to distance himself from the orange bastard. Emmer said, quote, "I think he should stick to the issues. Yet there he goes," end quote. Wow. And then Scarborough added this, quote, "If she were so stupid, if she were so mentally impaired, why did she destroy him in a debate for 90 minutes? Destroy him, and so much so he refuses to debate her even on Fox." Well, yeah. I don't think there's any question that Trump has really crossed the proverbial red line in this instance where it concerns his descent into the kind of mental illness that has always motivated and nourished dictators and would-be dictators. This is a familiar pattern, whether those would-be dictators are political, religious, in the business world. A dictator is a dictator. It doesn't make any difference. When they descend into this kind of rhetoric, the kind of rhetoric that is absolutely positively scary. Well, beyond scary. Apocalyptic kind of language. I mean, this has happened on this planet before. It's happened to black people in this country over and over again, whether it was Florida or Oklahoma or here in Georgia. Over and over, this kind of rhetoric has led people to commit acts of insane violence and murder and mayhem and burning shit and lynching people. Black folk in this country know about this. They have been victims of this. Jews in this country know about this because their grandparents, or their great-grandparents, or their aunts and uncles are familiar with this. And it seems like the people who don't understand the horror of what this orange fucking bum is saying are these insane Christians who go to his rallies and cheer when he says the most vile shit about another human being. Because he has no platform other than violence. He has no politics other than violence. He has no ideas other than violence. He has no reason for being other than violence. That's all this rancid son of a bitch has. And he's pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.